Hello everyone and welcome to my video on 2.4, the Trans-Saharan Trade Routes. Your host Alexis, and let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to go over is the central question for this topic, and that is, what were the causes and effects of the Trans-Saharan trade, and how did the growth of empires influence trade and communications? So I want you guys to think about these smaller questions right here in order to answer the essential question at the end of this video, hopefully. So some questions you could keep in mind is, why did the Trans-Saharan trade route form? What did the Trans-Saharan trade route bring to the world, and how did empires advance and innovate the trading world? Okay, so we're gonna get into a video and try to keep these questions in your head. So we're gonna start off with the 5 W's of the Trans-Saharan trade route. So first we have who made up the Trans-Saharan trade route. So this trade route was mainly made up of Arabic and African groups that traded together, and these were basically the primary type of people that you would see on the route, and they were the ones who kind of started the whole process. Okay, so what is a Trans-Saharan trade route? Well, the trade routes were a combination of trading networks that allowed Muslim merchants to trade their various goods with African individuals. Africans traded gold, ivory, hides, and slaves for the Arabic trade of Berber salt, cloth, paper, and horses. Okay, so where did this take place? The Sahara Desert, located in North Africa. When did it take place? From the 7th to the 14th century. And now, why did this trade route pop up? And the main reason was because of new luxury items. So the empires had this key mentality, and so you could see a emperor leader say, they have something that we want, and we have something that they want. So it's a win-win situation. If we trade them this, they'll give us that. But an indirect effect was the diffusion of culture and ideas. They didn't really anticipate that, but it did happen, which was one of the good effects. So here's just a little map of the Trans-Saharan trade route. You can see we have little paths coming in from Arabia to Ethiopia, going all the way to Egypt, a little bit up here to Morocco and Europe. It went all the way up there. It comes down, and you see it just goes all throughout northern Africa. And right here we have a big hot spot, Bilma right here. This is like a really good spot where everything kind of joins in from all sides, and that's why we could say that this is one of the centers of trade. So let's move forward to the innovation and advancement. So throughout the life of the Trans-Saharan trade route, there's a lot going on. We saw the introduction of oases, camels and camel saddles, and Ewing caravans. So oases were basically places where human settlement was possible due to water access. Camels were introduced to travel because they were they adapted really great with the arid and harsh environments of the Sahara Desert, which not a lot of the other animals could deal with. So when using camels, they created a bunch of different types of camel saddles, which allowed for different types of tasks to be performed, whether to lead the group or to hold more storage. It kind of really helped progress throughout the trading routes. And so a caravan is actually an abstract idea. It's basically a big group of merchants or travelers that stuck together throughout a voyage across the trade routes in order to trade their luxury items. So here we see a picture of an oasis. You see this water kind of helps this little community thrive, and people could come in here, get some food, rest up, and then continue on their voyages. This is an example of a caravan, another example of a caravan, and these are like some camel saddles. This one right here would be used by the one leading, so it'd be this one, this person right here, and this one kind of holds more storage underneath the seat. And over here you could also see that these camels have big sacks of items, and that was possible through the different types of saddles. So that's kind of one of the innovative creations that helped the trade kind of advance and prosper. So now we're talking about prospering. We have the expansion of this trade route. So by the 8th century, so this is already 4 centuries into the trade route, it became famous throughout Europe and Asia. It had gold, which was one of the most precious commodities traded. West African merchants acquired metal from the waters of the Senegal River. Foreign traders came to West Africa seeking gold, ivory, and slaves. There's so much stuff going on here, and it was like a really great trading spot. There's so much trade. You saw salt, textiles, horses, even, and this trade brought a lot of wealth to the African societies, and it also allowed a bunch of religions to spread. And one of them was this Islamic religion. So we could say that this trade route brought wealth in terms of money, but also wealth in terms of culture. But there was some conflicts within these trading routes. By the 12th century, a lot of empires started to decline, and some started to fall, others started to rise. And one significant fall was the decline of the Ghanaian state, because that allowed for the state of Mali to rise. And Mali, we're going to get into, is really influential within the Trans-Saharan Trade route, because it decided to tax nearly all trade coming into West Africa. So this allowed Mali to become really prosperous and powerful, and that kind of advanced its own state into a more complex, centralized state. And although it wasn't too good for the other states, this progression of Mali allowed in the future for states to become more centralized. That kind of advanced the government, and we'll get into that right here. We saw the introduction of regional currency, so we saw cowrie shells, cotton cloth, gold, glass beads, and salt, and that would soon progress into like more of a paper money and stuff. And like today we have banks, money as in bills, coins. So this kind of like is going in that direction. So that's why the state of Mali was so significant because it allowed for a lot of ideas to flourish within a centralized government. We saw military-led protection of trade routes. So this is where we see the more organized formation of military. And as I keep on saying, this is really important, a more centralized government. Okay, so as these states start to progress, we see more organized, centralized governments, and before you know it, we have different types of governments, such as democratic governments, as we see today in the present day. This is why we're kind of going over the AP World History Modern, because this all ties into the modern world. Okay, so some important figures, for example, is Sundiata. So this is Mali's founding father. When he was younger, his father died, and that kind of caused invasions of his hometown society. But when his hometown was being invaded, he was spared because he was crippled and he was deemed unthreatening. So the invaders decided not to take his life. But because of that, Sundiata kind of grew up stronger. He became a fighter, and this kind of caused a series of events leading him into exile from his enemies because he was that threatening. But that only made him stronger. So he came back to his birthplace in 1235, where he conquered the land. And as a leader, he made a thriving gold trade in Mali. So he came back, beat all his opponents, all his enemies, and set up the state of Mali. So we said that the fall of the Ghanaian state kind of allowed Sundiata to come in and bring up Mali, the state of Mali. And as we can see, Mali was really influential. So this individual himself was one of the reasons why we see the progression of states, of centralized governments, of currencies within the present world. Okay, now our second one, this is our final important figure, is Mansa Musa. So this is Sundiata's grandnephew. He was more of a political and religious leader. So in 1324, he began a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is Islam's holiest city, and throughout this journey, he kind of like began to love the Islamic culture and religion. And so when he returned back home to West Africa, he decided to establish schools in Timbuktu. He built mosques in Muslim trading cities, and he sponsored those who want to continue their religious studies beyond Africa. So he was really supportive of that religion and all they had to bring in. And this kind of demonstrates how the Trans-Saharan Trade routes brought in a diversity of religion. After his death, unfortunately, the Mali state kind of began declining, and soon it was replaced by the Songhai Kingdom. But we still have to acknowledge the fact that Mali was a really influential state. So now that we know basically a basic understanding of what the 2.4 is, the topic of 2.4, the Trans-Saharan Trade routes, we have to understand what we learned from this. So overall, we can see the causes and effects of the Trans-Saharan Trade route. It allowed a lot of trade of luxuries. We saw gold, horses, unfortunately slaves, but of course the slaves kind of did diversify different cultures in different areas. So it was unfortunate, but it did progress some of society. But beyond all that, there's trade of knowledge, religion, culture, and technology. So, for example, the innovations along the trade routes. Now, in the future, we begin to see different methods of trade. We see more military-like trading routes, so that trade doesn't get robbed, you could say. We see innovations such as different traveling methods, and overall, this whole trading route really helped to innovate the world as a whole. So that's what I just said. So going back to Mansa Musa, he's a prime example of how people were able to bring prosperity to Africa through these trading routes. He brought the Islamic religion to West Africa, and this allowed for a lot of different types of ideas and cultures, and it really helped progress the society in a more religious, in a more intellectual manner. And Sundiata is a great example of how the Trans-Saharan Trade routes came to be. How did it form? What did it allow to happen? Okay, and so we're gonna end this video off with the essential question. So I just want you guys to relook at this question. What were the causes and effects of the Trans-Saharan Trade, and how did the growth of empires influence trade and communication? I just basically went over the answers for this question. You just have to form your own response. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave my personal answer in the description below, but you guys can create your own answer and go off from there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. So thank you for watching.